My name is Emily Parker, and I want to share my story, not because it's easy to tell, but because I believe that maybe, just maybe, it might help someone else avoid making the same mistake that cost me everything I once held dear. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and secrets are almost impossible to keep. My childhood was simple but full of love. My parents weren't wealthy, but they worked tirelessly to provide for us. From them, I learned what I thought were unshakable values: honesty, loyalty, and perseverance. My father used to tell me, "Emily, no matter where life takes you, never forget who you are." And for a long time, I truly believed I lived by that advice. When I turned 25, I met Michael, the man who would later become my husband. Michael had this effortless charm, a quiet confidence that drew people in. He was ambitious, but humble, serious about his goals, yet always found time to make others laugh. He worked as an architect, meticulous, thoughtful, passionate about every detail. At that time, I had just started building my career in marketing, full of energy and big dreams. The connection between us was instant, the kind of chemistry that people talk about but rarely experience. We laughed easily, we understood each other without words, and before long, our lives felt inseparably intertwined. Within 2 years, we were married in a beautiful outdoor ceremony under the open sky, surrounded by our families and closest friends. That day I remember thinking, this is it. This is the life I always wanted. The early years of our marriage were blissful. We bought a small but cozy house just outside the city. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying out different restaurants, and curling up together on the couch for movie nights that always ended with us falling asleep halfway through. Life felt peaceful, stable, and full of love. I was sure Michael and I would grow old together, side by side. But life has a strange way of testing the things you think are solid. When I turned 30, I received a promotion at work, one I had been dreaming about for years. It came with a bigger paycheck, a fancy title, and the respect I had worked so hard to earn. But it also came with endless hours, constant travel, and pressure I wasn't prepared for. I told myself I could handle it all, that success was worth the sacrifice. Michael, ever the supportive husband, stood by me through it. He'd leave little notes of encouragement on the fridge, cook dinner when I got home late, and listen patiently when I vented about office politics. Sometimes he'd even cancel his own plans just to make sure we had some time together. He was doing everything right. But somewhere along the way, I started slipping. It didn't happen suddenly. It was small things at first. Missed dinners, short replies, less laughter. I started spending more time focused on work and less on us. And during one of my many business trips, I met Ryan. Ryan was a colleague from another branch. He was funny, confident, and had this way of making everyone around him feel at ease. Our conversations started off harmless, sharing stories about clients, late meetings, and the chaos of corporate life. But slowly, they began to drift into more personal territory. I found myself telling him about my exhaustion, my frustrations, and even about the arguments Michael and I were having because of how much I was working. Looking back now, I can see it clearly. That was where I took the first wrong step. Instead of opening up to my husband, I was confiding in someone outside my marriage. It felt innocent then. But the truth is, emotional distance starts long before physical distance does. The more time I spent with Ryan, the more blurred the lines became. He made me feel noticed again, admired in a way that felt new. What began as friendship turned into something heavier, something that lived quietly between words and glances. Deep down, I knew I was crossing boundaries, but I ignored that small voice of conscience whispering, "Stop before it's too late." Then one night, after a long business dinner and too many drinks, I made a choice that destroyed everything. I betrayed Michael's trust. In one reckless moment, I shattered the foundation of the marriage I had spent years building. The guilt hit me like a tidal wave the next morning. I couldn't look in the mirror without hating the person staring back. I told myself it was just a mistake, that it would never happen again. But the truth was, something inside me had already changed. I carried the weight of that night like a secret poison, pretending everything was fine when nothing was. Michael began to notice. He'd ask me if something was wrong, if work was too much, if he had done something. I lied. I said I was just tired. I blamed stress, deadlines, travel, anything to hide the truth. He didn't deserve my distance, and yet, I kept building walls between us. I thought if I buried the secret deep enough, maybe it would disappear. But secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how hard you try to keep them buried. One evening, while I was in the kitchen, Michael found messages on my phone that I had been careless enough to leave. When he confronted me, his voice was shaking, not from anger but from heartbreak. I will never forget the look in his eyes that night. It was a mix of disbelief, pain, and something far worse, disappointment. He looked at me like he no longer recognized the woman standing in front of him. I broke down completely. The truth came pouring out between sobs. Every word I said felt like another knife twisting deeper. I told him everything, because even though honesty was too late, it was all I had left to give him. When I finished, he stood silently for a few moments, then walked out. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just left. He never came back. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I tried calling him, sending messages, writing letters, begging for forgiveness, promising change, pleading for one more chance. But some things, once broken, can't be repaired. Trust, once shattered, rarely finds its way back. Our divorce was quiet. There were no dramatic fights, no bitter words. Just two people sitting across from each other in a courtroom, signing papers that ended what once felt unbreakable. In the months that followed, the silence of my home became unbearable. Every corner of that house reminded me of him, his laughter, his touch, his presence. I replayed that night over and over in my head, wishing I could go back, wishing I had just walked away from temptation. But wishing changes nothing. It's been 3 years since then. Michael has moved on, and from what I hear, he's happy now. And honestly, I'm glad he is. He deserves peace, love, and someone who won't take his heart for granted. As for me, I've been slowly rebuilding my life, piece by piece. I go to therapy. I've reconnected with friends I had pushed away. I've learned to forgive myself. Not completely, but enough to keep going. If there's one thing I've come to understand, it's this. Cheating isn't a mistake, it's a decision. It's a deliberate moment when you choose yourself over the person who trusted you most. And that choice leaves scars, not only on the person you hurt, but also on you. The guilt, the regret, the emptiness. They stay long after the moment is gone. I share my story not for sympathy, but as a warning. Don't let loneliness or pride cloud your judgment. Don't go searching for validation from someone else when the person who truly loves you is right in front of you. And above all, don't make the same mistake I made in thinking you can play with fire and not get burned. Because sometimes, all it takes is one wrong decision to destroy everything you thought would last forever.